This episode is sponsored in full by Heartlifter International, a 501(c) dedicated to making home and family the safest place on earth. This podcast is one of the far-reaching arms of Heartlifter International, and your support makes this possible. Yes, we reach all the way to places like Tanzania, Thailand, and it is because of you. Your donation, no matter the size of that donation, enables me to do this and to offer this to you ad-free. I don't know about you, but I really prefer listening to a podcast that isn't interrupted by ads. And as long as I can, I will keep that at bay. But your support, your tax-deductible donations, really, truly make such a difference and enable me to do this. So today on the show, I'm so excited to bring you Angela Carrell, author of Restored in Tuscany, a true story of facing loss, finding beauty, and living forward in hope. Angela's story of how she and her husband bought this amazing property in Tuscany, one that they ended up realizing was going to take a whole lot of work and restoration, is going to so inspire you. You know how much I love Tuscany and was so blessed to go there in 2009 as a surprise visit from my husband for our 25th anniversary. So much of her story just brings me so much joy, and I know that it's going to do the same for you. It's not only a story about restoring a home, it's about restoring a life. And restoring our life that's often met with loss and struggle and difficulty. We just celebrated International Women's Day, and March, in this country at least, celebrates Women's History Month. And we've had so many beautiful, remarkable voices of women here in this season and on the show in general. And for that, I just stop and I pause. And I give a great big thanks to every single guest, and more importantly, for every one of you. You matter, your voice matters, your presence matters to me and to every single person along your path today. You were born at such a time as this. This is our time in history. Now, we might not be written up in a history book or make any front pages, but you know what? Our stories, our lives are being witnessed, as it tells us in Scripture, by a cloud of witnesses, by heaven above, and most importantly, by God our Father, because, we are His daughters. And He sees and He hears us and He knows us and He loves us unconditionally and so beautifully. And we belong. We belong to the family of God, and we belong to each other here in this community. So let's welcome our newest Heartlifter, Angela Carrell, to the show. Angela Carrell, welcome. Welcome to
Thank
today's
you.
Heartlift. Oh my goodness, I've already exclaimed to you that I have to control my emotions because I'm so absolutely thrilled that you said yes to be a guest on our little engine that could. And I was in Belgium when I received the request and the information about your exciting, beautiful, stunning new book, Restored in Tuscany. It does sound like a fiction book,
It does. It could be.
but it's not. It's
It's not.
nonfiction. I just am
Not.
so happy that you were brave and courageous. I think that's what I
Mm.
first want to say is thank you for imaging for all of us in our middle age because we are in
Mhm.
the, I'm 64. I'm not ashamed to say it. We are in, as they say, the adolescence of aging. So
Mhm.
we're really still very young, and I still have so many
Yes.
dreams. And I know my Heartlifters have lots of dreams. So, dear Angela, yes, just tell us where this started and where it came from.
Mm. I think it has to go back 25 years
Wow.
to our first trip to Italy.
Mm,
And I had never traveled outside of like Mexico and the Bahamas and Canada.
yeah.
And that was where I wanted to go. And somehow that country captured me. I think the art, the history, the architecture, the food, the generosity of the Tuscan people, the hospitality, um,
Yes, for
well, and
sure.
the Italian people in general. But I was just became captured with the country. And then we were able to do a lot of other traveling, of course, after that. But I always longed to go back, and we did go back. But then what really happened that started me on the trail for this book was I also write fiction. I've written three
Hmm.
fiction books,
Yeah.
and I was in the middle of getting ready to start writing. Well, I'd written some. I was getting ready to really dive into the second fiction book. We had just the year before our family had suffered the loss of our son-in-law, who
Oh,
had it was really kind of shocking and sudden, even though he had a chronic form of leukemia that he had dealt with for 10 years, but he just handled it with diet and exercise. But it was one of those things that sort of had that mark that year, that about 10 years is when it would maybe show up.
yeah.
And it just showed up in a big way and ended up taking
Oh,
his life.
oh.
And so, not only are you grieving for this bright young man and his family, but then also your daughter, your grandkids.
So they had
And
children.
so
Hmm.
they had two children, little kids, 5 and 2.5. I think we were grieving, and I think we both love to see places. And so we always said when we would do Italy, it was pedal to the meadow. Let's see what's around the next corner, never spending
Something
over two
exciting.
nights. Oh, it is. I mean, always. And so there's room for those kinds of trips. Those are fun trips and exciting. But I think because we were grieving and because I needed space to write this second book, I felt just almost a palpable hunger, longing for. I just had in my head this Tuscan village because we had been through
Mm,
Tuscany and stayed there a couple times, and very agricultural. So it reminds me of my
yes.
Kentucky,
Yes, I
rural
agree. It reminds me of
background.
my Virginia.
Virginia,
Exactly.
yeah,
Same.
sure.
Hmm.
This has that kind of laid back, connected to the land feeling. And
Hmm.
I just was longing for a place where I could just plant some roots, even for a couple of weeks, and just
Oh,
unpack a suitcase, not have to think about the next hotel, the next
no.
destination, the next, reading the guidebook, and just be able to focus on the book in the
Hmm.
mornings, but then also just to let my soul be filled back up in the
Yeah.
afternoons and not just in evenings, just really soak in what it's like to be in a Tuscan village. And
Yes.
so we were able to do that. And we found
Wow.
this
Wow.
tiny place totally off the tourist path, which is what we
Yes,
wanted,
I know.
and just quiet
So
and
fun.
a real living, breathing Tuscan village. And
Hmm.
so we stayed there for 2 weeks and just fell in love with it. Fell
I'm
in love
with
with the
you.
rhythm of life, and yeah, I mean, just the locals were so warm and welcoming, and of course, my husband is very friendly and southern, and so he was just chowing everybody, in the
Ciao, ciao.
village.
I know.
Chow,
I love
chow,
it.
chow, y'all.
Prego, prego.
Yeah.
I just love it so much. I can't handle it. I'm so sorry. No, I'm not sorry.
Don't be sorry.
No, it's the best. Sorry.
But anyway, no, I know. I'm just
Oh.
laughing because I so totally know what you're expressing. And you do just know when you connect with a place like that. And anyway, so that we
Mhm.
just wanted to keep coming back to that village. And year after year we did. And
Ah,
then finally, one day, we
wow.
said, why don't we take a peek at what's available? and then we found a house that was checked all of the boxes, no renovation, a beautiful view inside the village walls. Those were our three things. And of
Yes.
course, as the story goes, there was a big renovation that we didn't expect.
Can't wait to read it.
And and that's okay. I mean, it was that renovation that I didn't want to do ended up really changing my life
Hmm.
and causing me to look at all of the things really that need to change in my life. And at that time I was
Hmm.
facing my 50th birthday, and
Right.
so I knew
It's
something
pivotal.
needed to change. Yes, it
What
is.
was that
And
feeling for you though? Like, why did you feel like something needs to change? Because I think I'm
yeah.
feeling that right now in my life, having just
Yes.
got back from Belgium, like I said, for 6 weeks, dug in my roots, had one place,
Mm,
really got into not a village, but a city. Of course, walking
yes.
back and forth to my daughter's house was amazing and being connected like that because none of my children live close. And so, but what was it? Like, I bet that every Heartlifter listening is leaning in at this moment, this our lean in
Mm,
moment, I call it.
mm-hmm.
Something needs to change. That's so
Yes.
powerful.
Well, I think something needs to change when what you're doing is not working anymore. And what I mean by that is I was not growing spiritually. I mean, I've been
Hmm.
a Christian for a long time, but I felt like I spiritually was just sort of stuck. I was just stuck in many things, trying to please, trying
Hmm.
to do what people expected me to do, trying
Yeah.
to satisfy all of these sort of external things that were pulling in different directions. And actually, most of the time, working outside of my giftedness, trying to be something I really wasn't, that God didn't really design me to be. Like, looking at financial reports for the businesses we had started. And I mean, I like a
Ah,
little of that, but just
yeah.
trying to dig into managing people. And I'm a creator, not a manager. And so some of
Yes.
those things I just started looking at in my life. And I thought, these are just sucking the life out of me.
Mm,
And
hmm.
at the same time, I wasn't probably on a firm foundation as far as where I was drawing my energy to even be able to
Mm.
see it, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes
I think I
total
wasn't
sense.
even
Yes.
aware.
In
So
in
that
what
was,
way? Like when you say that, because I just want to dig into your heart so
yeah.
much. So just say stop digging because I just have my hoe and I'm just like, I feel like you are such a wealth for us. Not being aware of things that are taking your energy. How did the awareness then come?
hmm
Was there an
Yes.
aha? Was
Well,
there a pivot? Was there a epiphany, or was there just that dull?
I think it was a dull, grinding,
Mhm.
just ache almost.
I
And
feel it.
it was just day after day of coming home from doing what I thought I needed to do for taking care of, my elderly mother, you
Hmm.
know, doing all the dutiful things, getting this report to this person, doing this thing for this business, trying to be a marketing person, trying to be an accountant, trying to be a technology person. When you run a small business,
Oh, I
you're
do
trying to do
know.
everything.
We have one.
And
Yes,
so, yes, so
I do.
and so all of those things at the end of the day, it was just day after day started really wearing me down.
Mm.
Yeah, it was just that kind of dripping, grinding, just day after day. But
Mundane.
I,
Mhm.
but here's the other thing I think too that really brought it to kind of a climax, I suppose, is when we lost our son-in-law.
Mm.
I was kind of in that thing of just doing what I had to do, thinking that, okay, in the future, I can have help with this or that. I just have to kind of keep grinding it out right
Mhm.
now
Mhm.
and sort of chasing the carrot that's
Mhm.
dangled in front of you and it keeps moving as you go. So that's sort of how I was living my life. And, in your 40s, you can kind of power through some things.
Without a
But
doubt.
then,
Yes.
without a doubt, and then that grief happened, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden, any reserves I had, any margin was just gone. And so I think that's what really brought it to a head
Hmm.
is me sort of going introspective a bit and thinking, okay, something is just not going to work for this next decade. Should the Lord give me another decade? I mean, it's just not going to work. Something's got to give.
Yeah. Loss has that kind of effect.
Mm,
it can, I will always say it can, because a big
Mm-hmm.
premise of the work we do here is awareness, because awareness is everything. So
Yes.
if we're not living life with our hands, our heart, our mind, our spirit open every morning, when
Mm,
then it'll just go, oh, my son-in-law died, and that's so sad.
mm,
But I feel like God seized you. Sadly, I have two son-in-laws, and it's hard for me to even think. I,
mm,
I just can't. I
mm-hmm.
can't do it.
Yeah.
Woo!
It,
So when you face
yeah.
loss like that, it's a time and period for grief, and grief can be a great guide and teacher if we allow it. But you allowed it,
Yes.
Angela.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think yes, I did allow it, and it was painful. It's painful to lean into all that.
It's
But
awful,
if you
actually. It's
don't,
just
it's
it's
awful.
yeah.
Yes. But if you don't do it when it's happening, it's going to come out later in
Mm,
some way.
that's so true.
And so I've had enough in my life to know for sure that that was the case.
Right. You write that you had set that goal for yourself on your 50th birthday.
Hmm.
Can I
Hmm.
ask you what year? I'm trying to get a timeline in my head. So what year
Yeah,
was that?
sure. Well, I'm 57, so it was
Oh,
7 years ago, which would be
okay.
2016 is when I turned
Okay.
50.
Okay.
And
And
yeah,
that
so
is when he also passed 20.
he died in 2013.
Oh,
2014 is when I went to Italy. But all of this is
okay.
kind of driving, in my head, I'm
Mhm.
thinking, okay, when I turn 50, this is going to be different. Just sort
Yes.
of setting that goal out
Oh,
there. Okay,
50 is
it's going to be
huge for
different
sure.
because I'm
Yeah.
approaching it. And so it was kind of heavy in my mind, but
Would you
I
say it
just
was a
couldn't seem to.
dissatisfaction, like that dull ache, like dissatisfaction, or like
Yeah.
I know there's more. I know that this isn't all that
Hmm.
God breathed his life into me to be.
Yes. Well, I think the the passage that kept kind of haunting me a bit is when it talks about abundant life.
Mhm.
And
John 10:10.
abundant, yes, and abundant shouldn't mean busy. And I felt like my life at
Mm.
that point had been very abundant, but abundantly busy.
Ooh.
And
Mm,
that was I thought there's got to be more to when Christ says, I'll give you abundant life. There's got to be
mm.
more than just
Yes,
being busy and having opportunities to do this and that.
I agree.
So that's what really drove me, I think.
Do you feel like it was God's mercy, his his favor? Like he looks down, and the scripture tells us that he looks down from heaven for
Mm,
hearts that are searching after
hmm.
him, hungering after him.
Yes.
Call that favor.
Yes.
What do you want to call that? But that's scripture. That's what he's in heaven looking down and going, wow. And I think he must have said to himself, there's Angela. I created her, and I see her heart hungering and searching.
Mm,
I'm going to give her a little nudge.
hmm.
I'm going to give her a little help.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I think so. Absolutely. 100%.
He loves you
I mean,
so
just,
much, and he loves each and every one listening
yes.
so much. And I feel like
Yes.
when he sees a heart that is hungering and thirsting, this is where I'm at anyway.
Mm,
When he
mm-hmm.
sees a heart on the floor, in the closet, walking the
Mm,
streets, crying out, like, oh, there has to be more. More is not always
mm-hmm.
a bad word. More is a really good word in the scripture.
Yes.
He wants more and more for us. And so you said it took a year or two.
Yes.
No real
Yeah.
change. I love that your honesty.
Yeah.
Why do we this question just made me sit back. I'm going to be chewing it like a cow and meditating on it and regurgitating. I don't, cows have five stomachs, right? So they meditate, they bring it back up all the time. We sometimes do not live up to our goals.
Yes.
I have to know what your thoughts are since I'm not holding a hard copy yet, but I can't wait. But
Okay.
why is that?
I had in my head when I turned 50, this is my opinion, my story, but when I turned
Mhm.
50, this was going to happen and that was going to happen. We're going to find a pathway forward with how to deal with, take some pressure off me with the businesses. I go on a trip for my 50th birthday to celebrate. And this is supposed to be the big beginning of this
Mm.
glorious, and I'm going to love my 50s. This is going to be great. And the night before my 50th birthday, we were on a trip. We were in Belize with some of our
Oh,
best friends, and it was my little birthday
yeah,
trip
party,
and
party.
party. And the night before, my father-in-law had an accident with a gun and accidentally shot himself.
Oh, he did
And
not.
so we rushed home.
Oh
And so
my.
literally my 50th birthday, I'm standing, we're all gathered around his bedside, not knowing if he's going to make it or not. And then the next 6 weeks, we're traveling back and forth to Lexington, taking turns with all of the family who's sitting with him. And he was 88 years old, and he lasted 6 weeks, 4 surgeries, an amazing man. I mean, truly
Uh-huh.
unbelievable,
Wow.
godly man,
Oh.
um, just,
Oh.
patriarch of the family. And
Mm.
so, yeah, so then it just taught
Goodness.
me. I thought, all of these big goals, all these big plans, and we don't even know what today holds. We don't
We
know what
really
tomorrow
don't.
holds.
Mm-mm.
And when you just don't have any kind of margin in your life for these things, you're just right back to where you started from. But I think the thing kind of going forward from there, that was right before we bought the property in
Mm.
Italy. And so that the 50th kind of came and went, no change, because honestly, we were grieving again. We were
Again.
back in that thing of another sudden loss and just grieving again.
Mm.
And so I think when we started then this again, not expected to do a restoration. We just thought we were going to buy this little place we could just kind of go for holidays and share with friends and family. Then ended up embarking on this restoration that I had not planned for, year long, in a foreign
Mm.
country, foreign culture, foreign currency, foreign measurement system. I mean,
Yes.
even little
Foreign
things like
construction, all the things. I
everything.
can't even
Yes,
imagine.
materials. Yeah, just the whole thing.
At
So
50,
obviously,
not 30.
yeah, right,
There's a
exactly.
difference.
And
Mhm.
yeah, there's a difference, and didn't have room in my schedule really for all that. But through that process, I look back now and I see how I was primed and ready, and the
Mm.
timing was just so perfect
Mhm.
because I learned through that process as we were
Uh-huh.
demoing, I don't know
Demoing,
the
demo
proper
day.
demoing, yeah, demo day, as we're taking all the junk out of the house, stuff off the walls. There was an amazing moment one day where I walked in, and like I said, I was already kind of primed and ready, starting to ask the Lord, just reveal in me
Mm.
sin, bad habits.
Ooh.
What is it
Oh,
you
you
see that needs
asked.
to be? Yes, I did.
How
Or
brave.
in childhood healing. What is it that's
Yes,
not,
that's my
what do I
specialty
need
here.
to,
Right.
yes,
Yes.
what do I need to go? And one of the things that, before I get to sort of the goal thing, one of the things that helped me on this process was I I met this man, this Italian gentleman
Mm.
who had been the caretaker for this property.
Uh,
And when I first laid eyes on him, it almost took my breath away because he
oh,
looked like my long dead uncle that
oh,
I had was so important to me from childhood.
oh gosh.
And there
Like a
was
little
just
angel.
yes, there was just
Yeah.
this whole section in my life around this man
Please make this a
who that
movie.
I yeah, that I just buried and just put away, and because he was
Wow.
died suddenly, and just put
Huh.
that away. And when I saw him, all of a sudden, all this comes back from this period of my childhood that was real formative. And so that was another
Ooh.
kind of prompt to dig into that particular area.
Uh-huh.
And as I was so then kind of back to the demo process, as I was seeing all of this stuff come off the walls and
Mm.
first of all, it was dusty, it was dirty. I walked
Yeah.
in and there dust motes swirling around, and you can hardly breathe, and just pile of rubble. It's ugly.
Hmm.
And but I looked up, and because they had torn off all this old plaster, there was this gorgeous
Mm.
15th century arch that had been revealed.
Oh,
Gorgeous. I mean, the craftsmanship was just
oh my
beautiful.
goodness.
And yeah,
Who
as I
would
was
cover
sitting
that up?
there, who would cover that up? Exactly. Italians who have got so much
Italians.
history that, so much
Exactly. It's
beautiful
just
stuff.
15th century.
Yeah, exactly. But I looked at that, and it really did hit me that you cannot set a new goal. You can't put new plaster on old plaster. You have to tear off the old.
You do.
You
You got to
have
get
to
down to
get
the
down
bones.
to the bones.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, what I've always known about renovations, we've done several of them, really hit me that I can't be restored, renewed, renovated until I do the demo work.
Yeah.
And that set me on
Hmm.
that path of actually going in and doing the demo work.
Wow. In
So it was
your
in
heart,
my
your soul,
heart.
your mind, your
Yes,
body.
my
Hmm.
yes, what
That's what we
my
call the
like
Heartlift
false
method. Right.
beliefs,
Yes.
exactly. What
Yeah.
things I believed from childhood
Hmm.
because of events that had happened, things
Yes,
that I
ma'am.
had just kind of learned and soaked
Hmm.
in.
Hmm.
And the then it kind of goes to the goal thing, because like I was looking at that brick wall and how bricks are just laid on top of bricks, and I
Hmm.
thought, that's what I've tried to do. I've just tried to
Ooh.
layer some new goal on top of a new goal, and
Oh,
yet just more to be found wanting, because
yes.
there's no way you can achieve
Well,
that.
because it's not
And
really probably the goal.
it's
That's not,
not.
it's not the God goal. It's not what
Right.
he's looking down from heaven, what he breathed his life into you to be. It can be a million, like you said earlier, it can be the projections of others. It can be stories that have been placed on us, stories that have been
Yes.
hidden. I just think it
Mhm.
is so powerful, this picture, because it's obviously a picture of the work I try to do with people in my life, my clients, my
Mhm.
own life, my family's life, my legacy, my history, that there is a 15th century
Yes.
handcrafted piece of exquisiteness. That
Yes.
is our God breathed identity. That's our essence. You've
Yes.
just given us a picture of who we are trying to get to in our lives, in our essence. Who
Yes.
really did God create me to be? So that's a
Yes.
stripping, it's a pounding, it's just ugly, and it's full of dust in the
Painful.
air, painful.
Yes.
Right. So can you give me a peek, I guess, in how did that
Mhm.
look for you? How did that
Mhm.
deconstruction, how did that look for you? Did
Yes.
you go to a counselor? Did you go to a therapist? Did you
Mhm.
just walk through your life and follow whispers? Like, one of the sentences I did get from your book that just speaks to me, because in my very first chapter of my book, Stronger Every Day, I write about my son and his wife's 100-year-old house and how they were bringing it down to the good bones. So I just love it. But
Mhm.
you spoke, houses speak
Mm.
and
And
walls
walls
talk.
talk.
And then you said, in a quiet whisper
Mhm.
on the wind way. And that's what
Mm.
I'm always talking about, the whispers. So was
Yes.
it that? What did that look like? So someone's listening
Mhm.
and they're like, maybe my goals, I'm just bricking goals, man. I mean, I
Mhm.
teach online college. I teach how to have SMART goals. I do all that. But how did you do it?
Mhm.
Walk through that.
Well, I mean, I think there were two parts to it. I mean, one was again the digging down, the demolition before I could start building back with the new goals and the new way to look at things. For the demolition, again, I think I'd been kind of primed and ready, because
Hmm.
I had already been kind of thinking, my dad had passed away several years before.
Oh
So I'd
my
already kind of been
goodness.
processing through some of
So much
that.
loss. Yes,
Yeah, that's a lot. I know.
it is. It's a lot.
And
That's what I say.
it's
It's
a
a
lot.
lot. How are you
It's a
doing? It's
lot.
just a lot.
It's just a lot.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
so I've been kind of unpacking some of that. And yes, I think it's a combination of, I wouldn't say, I mean, I didn't do years of therapy or anything like that, but I've
Hmm.
had counselors at certain times that have helped me
Okay.
see things better. And
Perfect.
so I think counseling is wonderful. I think I've read a lot of Christian books. I mean,
Hmm.
the Bible, obviously, and just
Obviously.
seeking the scriptures and asking the Holy Spirit to really reveal things. Journaling was another
Oh,
thing.
beautiful.
Do a lot of journaling. That's been big for me.
Mm.
And I found that even, it's interesting, I even through that process, when I was really deep into it, I just had a couple of dreams that
Ooh. Oh.
spoke to me in a
Can you please
way
share? I
that,
love this. This is
yeah.
liminal space. I love this. This is so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting, but well, I had a dream of one time, this extremely vivid dream of my father who
Mm.
had been sick for about 7 years. Not bad. I mean, he probably the last year really bad. He had cancer, but he just sort of came to me. I mean, I almost would say it's a vision, but not
Hmm.
to get too woo woo. But it just seemed
Well,
really
we kind
vivid.
of
It was
love
a
woo
really
woo. Good,
okay.
solid,
Well,
spiritual woo woo. The Jesus kind
yeah,
of
it's
woo
a
woo.
very solid
Very
spiritual
solid
woo
woo.
woo.
We're very much believe in solid woo woo. Maybe that's my next book,
Yeah.
Solid Woo Woo.
Yeah,
There we go.
I like that actually. I think that's great.
We'll see.
Um, but I just had this vivid dream of my dad. He was on the third floor of our house, just sort of this attic room.
Huh.
And I actually was up there when I had, for some reason, I would occasionally I'll sleep up there if I'm not sleeping well in our bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of came and I was sleeping up there and I just had this vivid view of him at the top of the stairs. And this is so weird, but he was
Oh,
like wearing biking clothes, like what you would wear to
a
do, you
cyclist?
know, cyclist clothing, like, the really bright colors
Fascinating.
and this kind of
Right.
spandexy, all this stuff.
He's just riding down
And
the golden streets.
yeah, I know. And then he had a glass of red wine in
I
his
love
hand.
this.
I know. And the funny thing was my dad was a teetotaler. I mean, he,
Okay.
just did it all, but it was sort of, and my sister who loves this kind of stuff too, I was processing it with her. I said, gosh, I
Mm.
had this most vivid dream. And he was, his whole persona was just so, um, sweet. And my dad,
Oh.
there,
Had some rough
it was a
edges?
comp it was a n it sometimes, not all most of the
Uh-huh.
time, no, but he just,
Hmm.
I think, battled some depression, and so when he would
Okay.
have
Yeah.
that, was he it was just harder. He was
Yeah.
struggling, and
Hmm.
so I think, my sister said, I think that looks like the picture of health. It's like he's just in this
Oh.
the biking, the red wine. It's like we were just kind of talking about what in the world that could be, but it was sort of, I don't know, it just gave me a lot of
Mm.
comfort, I guess, as I was going through that process of, you know, digging into
Yeah.
past things and just a complicated relationship at times, and
Yes.
just that picture of restorate, because he was so sick at the end, just
Yeah.
restoration, health, that
So
he
you
just was
said
at
it looked
peace.
like a picture of health.
Yes.
I thought you said a picture of hell. Okay, I got it.
Oh,
I
golly,
want to
no.
clarify. It
Yes,
looked
health.
like a picture of
Picture
health
of
with
health
a beautiful
with,
glass of red wine
yeah,
that's good for the
red
heart
wine. Yes.
and
And then the I
the
don't know. So
bright
it just sort of
colors, the
bright
healthiness.
colors.
Fascinating. And so that spoke to
And
you like, okay.
that spoke to me. And then the other thing that was really formative during that time was I was staying at a place where he had served during World War II, and we were there for a
Wow.
conference,
Oh,
and it was in Sun Valley, Idaho, which had been taken over by the Navy as a convalescent hospital in World War II. And so I
really?
had traveled there. Yes, it's a crazy story, but I traveled there with my sister and my dad, and so he
Oh,
was able to go back and see it. And so I felt very connected to that place with
mm,
him.
for
And
sure.
so this is like after he had passed away, we were there for a conference, and I was in the middle of all of this sort of demo work. There were just some words that I thought, yeah, I know that sometimes when my dad was hurting, he would say things that would be kind of painful.
Hmm.
And but I never could remember what they were. And while I was there in the night, it came to me so clear exactly what it was. And
Wow.
and I have to be honest, I can't even remember now because I literally gave that to the Lord and just
I love
rejected
that.
it. I
Yes.
don't, I can't even tell you. I think I've
Good.
written it down somewhere in a journal, but I
It's
don't even
okay.
know what it is anymore. It just did not stick with me
Means you're
once I gave
healed.
it back.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. And so, but it was such a part of that process of just addressing
Mm-hmm.
those things that had been maybe painful at some in some way. And we're all going to hurt our kids. My goodness. I
We
mean, it's
sure
just
are, sadly.
we
I
are
know.
going to.
I
It's
know.
just part of it.
It's so
So,
painful to
and
finally recognize that.
it's just the truth. And so
Wow.
anyway, I think it was so those were a couple of times along the way that I felt like helped me journal through some things.
Hmm.
And
Which is what I
yeah.
love again, because we have this picture in our mind, of therapy or counseling or what spiritual direction. I myself, just coming home from Belgium, just went back to a psychologist counselor a few days ago.
Mhm.
Haven't been with one in decades, probably, but it was like one of my doctors was like, you need to go. You have some stuff that's
Mhm.
really heavy on you right now, and you need someone to listen to you
Mm.
instead of you listening to them. And
Mhm.
driving there, I thought, my whole entire life, one of my biggest things is I've given over control of my thoughts. I've been in many church situations where you had to go to an elder to get approved to marry somebody and that kind of thing. So a lot of,
Mhm.
I couldn't think for myself, I couldn't speak for myself, and I couldn't act
Mm.
for myself. And so a loss of independence. And I was driving there going, you know what? I really want to hear from you, God, but I don't necessarily need this man to be God anymore.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
can hear from you.
Yes.
I know you.
Yeah.
I want you, God. I will go through with this. I will give it a
Mm.
few, but I'm not necessarily needing him to prophesy over me. Whatever you want to say, or
Mm.
take his words
Mm.
as directly from God. And I'm
Mm.
speaking this because I feel like, especially those of us in this phase and age of our life, have listened to 20 million sermons, I have
Mm.
taught thousands of Bible studies, I've written Christian books, I've spoken all
Mm.
blah, 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 blah. I possess God, his knowledge. Christ
Mm.
lives in me. And
Mm.
you are unfolding for us such a beautiful image and picture of how he will be our therapist. He will guide us.
Mm.
The Holy Spirit is our counselor,
Yes.
and he'll give you a
Yes.
dream. He'll say, yeah, that one thing your dad said was probably really wounding. So
Mm.
let's open up that wound, get to the blueness, like the proverb says, so it can heal. And it doesn't have to be, oh, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to be like hours of weeping. And it can be
No.
just the whisper of, oh, that needs a little attention. Let's apply some forgiveness. Or is that what you're
Mhm.
saying to us?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is
And
that
I think even
restoration? You know?
yeah, I think it's a part of the absolutely. I think it's part of the restoration process for sure. And I think verbalizing, I think there's power in speaking things. And
Yes.
so one of the things I would try to do is if something would come to me, then I would just speak it out loud. I do not own that. That is
Mm-hmm.
the Lord's.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, and just it really gave me great compassion, honestly, for my dad, who I think
Yes.
the other thing, this is another kind of dream I had, but I had a time not long after he passed away that I saw him as a child. I just kind of visualized him as it just sort of came to me. I just visualized him as a child hurting because of things that had gone on in his family
Sure.
and grief. Three older siblings that died within 3 years of each other in their early
Oh my
20s,
goodness.
and so his poor mother was grieving and
Oh.
struggling to be a mother.
And he was younger
And
than those
so
siblings?
and he was 5. He was
Oh
5 to
my
6 to
goodness.
7.
Oh,
So, I mean, that just gave me great compassion when I started
I love
looking at
hearing
his
this.
story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just was able to see how he really did the best he could with the tools he had at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and now it's like it really, it, it helped form my character, and not in bad ways
Yeah.
necessarily. And there
No.
was some
No.
good came of that, because,
Mm.
the Lord meant it for good. And
That's that Genesis
so anyway,
50:20. I know. It's
yep,
a turnaround
it
God, if
just,
we'll let him.
yep,
If we'll
like
let him.
Joseph.
Woo, that is
Yes,
beautiful, because it shifts, what I like to say, it shifts from the shame game to the grace game.
yes, yes.
Because we all want to blame somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and we all want to shame somebody. We all shame, blame, all of those grudges, bitterness, all of that. Boy, if we can get where we can shift it, and God shifted it for you, and I'm so grateful. Glory be to God for that. Heartlifters, I'm so grateful to Angela and the time that she gave us to share her story, which has many, many layers, as most of our stories do, right? But she says one thing during our time here in part 1 that I just would like us to think a little bit more about. Call it a prompt, or just call it a meditation. But she was at a point in her life when she was turning 50, and she writes in her book, I wanted to put a stake in the ground. I want my life moving forward to be different than the life I have lived thus far. I remember having that moment as well when I stood on a Tuscan road, a dusty Tuscan road. Now, that was 2009, it's 2024. 15 years have gone by. But I have written on many occasions in articles, and I taught at many conferences and retreats when I got back. And I made a decision too, because when I went to Tuscany, I was going to turn 50 just a few months later. And I wrote in my journal, I do not want to live the next 25 years of my life like I have lived the past 25. Busy, overscheduled, overdoing it, overworking, a whole lot of overs. Well, I'm 15 years into that, and I'm once again not standing on a Tuscan road, but standing right here in my home, back to a place where I am still overdoing it and living in the land of over, as I call it. I sincerely hope that today, Angela's words, "something needs to change," resonated as deeply in your heart as it did in mine. Something needs to change. What might that be in your life? I am taking this, I'm sitting with it, I'm thinking about it, I'm praying about it, and most importantly, I'm picking up my pen and I'm making some very strong intentions about how I want to move forward in a way, in all the right ways, that is different than the way I've lived even the last 15 years. I'm not sure how to do that, but we're going to do it here, and we're going to do it together. So may Angela's words resonate with you. And I hope to meet you over on Instagram at Janelle Reardon, or over on Substack, our new online community. Please follow me there, because that's where I'm going to be pouring out my heart. And that's where we'll be moving forward together. Until next time.